y'all, it's Hope at Crafty Hope, and I had this picture for inspiration from Sarah, Joe, and Eric on SJ Designs Jewelry and decided to make a little resin shadow box. So I am using some just uh, UV resin, and then I've got this mold. It's a silicone mold from Blue Moon Beads. I bought it at Michael's, and it's got this great little uh, shadow box frame in it. It also has this rectangular one, which is the same size as the shadow box that I'm going to use for the cover. So I'm just pouring a little bit of my UV resin. Y'all, this is just, I think I actually bought that resin at Joann's, and whatever hard type UV resin you can find is fine. So I coated the whole bottom of that rectangular one, and then I'm using a little silicone cup, but you could use whatever little container that you've got, and put a little bit of black glitter. This is fine black glitter in my UV resin, and I am pouring it into that shadow box mold there. And I've got a little silicone tool there that you can buy with the other UV resin things, but you could also use a toothpick or a paintbrush or a bamboo skewer, just as long as you don't poke through your silicone mold, to kind of push that resin down into the sides of and around the loop at the top of this mold. So make sure that I've got UV resin in all of the areas. So once that's in there, I am going to clear off my desk. I don't want anything that's got the resin on it on my desk when I turn on the UV lamp. UV resin cures via UV light, so you can use a UV lamp, or you can put it in the sunshine. It doesn't take very long at all to get, and there I'm checking to make sure my resin was in all the areas, but it doesn't take long at all, seconds to minutes really, to cure this. So I'm going to put that in my lamp and set it for, I think I did a minute and a half. And so it's been a minute and a half, and I'm going to pull it out and check it. I think it feels just still a little tacky. So I turned it over and made sure it cured on the back side as well. And then I'm going to, and it's hot. When you pull that out, that resin kind of heats up to cure. And for cleanup, I am putting my little stir stick that I used and that little cup in there, and just letting it sit for a minute or two, not a minute, even a minute, but seconds, while I go ahead and pop out my shadow box. Y'all, these little boxes come out so cool. I saw this on I think it was a Michael's, one of their online YouTube tutorials where they made a little shaker pendant. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get that mold. So, yeah, and they used acetate to make the seal over the top of it. But when I got the mold, I realized that that other little rectangle was the same size as the pendant. So this is my first time doing this. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this is not a flawless execution of how I wanted this. I should have cured some things a little bit longer to make sure they weren't tacky, but I'm really happy with how it came together. So I did stick those things back in there to make sure they were well cured. And I'm noticing a few flaws here, and where there were bubbles in the resin. So I'll get to that in a little while, but for now I'm going to go ahead and put a little more resin in my little cup. And I have a star bead. It's a silver star bead. It's got a hole through it and everything, that I thought would match that inspiration photo from Sarah Jo and Eric. And so I'm using basically resin as a glue. I'm putting down a little bit of resin, and I'm trying to use the tweezers to be a little precise with it, but y'all, it was so fiddly for me that I think I ended up just using, my fingers to try to get that star just where I wanted. And so I'm going to put it in, y'all saw I just put a little bit of resin. I went ahead and cured it in the UV lamp, and it was not enough. It's going to pop out, but that's good because it gives me a little bit base. That star has some texture to it, and that gave me kind of the mold of it that I could then fill in. So I added a little more UV resin here. Gonna pop that star again using my fingers instead of the tweezers. Get it back in where I want it, and then I'm gonna cure it again in the UV lamp. Like I said, this is just acting as a glue to hold that star into place. And when that is up, I think I ended up doing another 30 seconds just to make sure it cured well. Now I've got a book page here and I cut out the word joy because I wanted just some kind of sentiment on the front of my pendant. And this word joy is not big enough. I wanted something that kind of filled a bigger space. So joy's not going to work, and I'll end up cutting out the word glorious. But I'm showing you that star seems cured, and I've got that little sliver of resin to go over the front, and that's how I'm going to make this shadow box kind of work. And I'm fiddling with it for a while, trying to see how I like it. And so I'm cutting out joy. I'm going to kind of place it there and look at it. And I realize, oh, that's too tiny. So I go back and I look and I find the word glorious. And again, I'm just cutting this out. It's an old, ancient, crumbly piece of book paper. And I'm going to seal that word glorious just a little bit with some matte gel medium. I could have also used Mod Podge or white school glue, anything that seals it, because usually when you put resin on paper, it makes the paper kind of go transparent. And I didn't want this to do that because there are letters on the back and that would kind of interfere with the word I had going on there. So I used this kind of dually. I, used the matte gel to stick it on as well as seal it. And when it was on, I sealed the back. And now I'm checking out those bubbles to see if they go all the way through. They don't, but I still want to kind of seal them in. So I'm putting a little bit of resin where those were. And I think I'm going to cure that real quick. And while that's curing, I'm going to go ahead and coat the inside or the back. It's the inside of my little front, but also the back of my piece of paper to make sure it kind of is glued in with the resin. So I put a little bit down and then decide I want to do it over the whole thing so that there's not any streaks. I didn't have quite enough resin, so I'm going to do a little bit of a glob right on my little slide piece there. What do I want to call that? The front piece. All right, and I'm going to spread that out again, trying to make sure I don't have any like streaks or anything like that in it so it feels more glass-like. And then I'll cure it. So I'm pulling out where I fixed that. I think I decided to add a little bit more. And so I'm going to stick them both in, cure that for, 30 seconds, something like that. Done. Yep, pull them back out. And all this time, this feels not sticky to me. Everything seems okay, and I've cured that inside one several times where the star is, but I'm going to put these little glass, well, I guess they're glass, these little gold beads in there. They're not even beads, they're little balls. They are something I bought at the Dollar Tree, and they're for nails in this little jar, and I thought it would be beautiful to represent the like bokeh lights that are in the inspiration photo. So I poured those in there because I wanted them to be shaker and move around. And then I'm putting a layer of resin on the front edge of my shadow box. Again, this is acting as a glue so we can glue our front piece on. Now, I encourage you to go check out SJ Designs Jewelry and see what everybody else made. I'll have a link below to my blog and possibly to Sarah Jo's blog as well so that you can go check out the other participants and what they made for this challenge. But if you have any questions about resin or anything else, go ahead and ask me. I'm still learning a little bit, but I've made a couple things. Last month I also used UV resin for the honeydew list challenge from Sarah Jo and Eric. All right, so I cured that. It felt nice and not tacky and everything, but as I move it around, those little gold beads started sticking to where the glue was on the front edge of that. So I'm moving those beads around, and because I'm realizing that they're sticking, I think I'm going to go ahead and shake this and let them stick to it. But they stuck around the star and all of that, and I just let it be. And I made a chain out of some it's gold wire, gold colored wire, and silver beads. I like that mixed metal, really went with what was in the shadow box and how that all worked out. And I added a silver clasp, and that's it, y'all. I'm going to have some pictures here at the end of this. If you have any questions, like I said, just let me know. If you like this, make sure to give me that thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps me out. Now, doesn't that look glorious? All right, guys, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Bye.